Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Mission Conservation live stream. We're glad you joined us today to continue talking endangered species. We've got another exciting partner with us today. My name is Ryan, and I'm here at Wonders of Wildlife National Museum and Aquarium in Springfield, Missouri. Before we get to our partner for today, as we always do, let's take a second and talk about where you can find and play the mission for this month. And so you're going to want to go to our Mission Conservation webpage, which is at www.wondersofwildlife.org/mission-conservation. There you will find right at the top of the page, get the app. And so you're going to want to move over and click on that button, and that's going to take you to a place where you can download the app to your device. And so once you have the Agents of Discovery app downloaded, then you can search for the mission for this month. You can see our featured mission on the page is Endangered Species of the World. And so when you search for that mission, you're going to want to search in the search bar on your app, at home, Mission Conservation, Endangered Species of the World. And before you play the mission, you're also going to need to download the images which are used as triggers as you play the endangered species mission. And so scroll down a little farther on the page, you'll see the box that says print images. Click on that button and you can print your images to play the mission. So you can print those images, you can take them outside and hide them, you can move them around your house, or you can even play by pulling the images up on your screen and play right there from your computer desk. So I hope you guys enjoy playing the Endangered Species mission this month. And if you scroll a little farther down the page, we have our schedule of missions and activities. Inside that mission for this month, you also have an activity guide you can play, or you can print or pull up and do the activities. We offer an activity guide each month to where you have some ideas for endangered species themed things you can do inside or outside. It may be a craft, it may be a game that you play, something to help bring awareness to that topic for that month. You also have a mission reward. So after you complete the mission, you earn a reward. And so you can click on that link below and it will show you the reward for that mission. If we scroll a little farther down the page, you'll see we have some other missions created by other conservation partners that also utilize Agents of Discovery. So if you scroll down and find the U.S. Forest Service mission, Smokey Bear, we actually celebrated Smokey Bear's 75th anniversary this past year, and we had a little help in promoting that mission. And so we wanted to give a shout out today to Hollywood legend Betty White. She just celebrated her 99th birthday, and so we wish her all the best. And back in September, she helped us promote this Smokey the Bear mission by posting a tweet out to the entire world celebrating Smokey Bear and promoting
And with us today, we have a special guest all the way from the St. Louis Zoo. Michael Dawson, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. How are you doing, Casey?
I'm doing so great. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to tell everybody and talk a little bit about our topic today, which is Hellbenders. All righty, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so today's topic, we are going to be talking about Hellbenders. One second here. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go. Now we're back on track. So to go ahead and I'm going to introduce myself and my colleague that's here in a minute. So who I am, my name is Mike Dawson. I am a educator at the St. Louis Zoo, and I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time talking about amphibian education. And joining me today is one of my colleagues, Mark Warner, who's I've spent a long time working with him. He's the zoological manager of the Herpetarium, and he's going to speak a little bit about what the St. Louis Zoo is doing with our Hellbender population here in Missouri and how they're helping save it. So what we wanted to start with is when you talk about Hellbenders, one of the big topics that comes up, because the Hellbender is considered in our state an endangered species, is the concept of threatened and endangered. And a good way to think of these topics is maybe to think of them as rankings. And so this is a way that scientists can talk to other scientists and talk to the public and let people know how some of our species are doing. Another way to think about this, or maybe a metaphor to think about it, is maybe like in a letter grade in your class. And so when you get grades in class on different topics, you might get an A in a class, and that means you're doing well. And as you get lower down, maybe a B or a C in a class, you may not be doing as well. And in these topics like threatened species and endangered might be similar to that. As you get down to like a D or an F, it just means that they're not doing as well. And so with population, sometimes there's a lot of different reasons. It could be that the habitat has been destroyed, the population's getting smaller. And so it gives us an idea that if they're getting threatened, they're not doing very well. And there's reasons that's happening. And if we don't change things that are going on, they might become labeled as endangered, and the population gets even smaller. And eventually, unfortunately, they could go extinct. And that's the goal of places like the St. Louis Zoo. We're trying to work and help conserve some of these species. And so the topic today, we're going to be talking about a species named Hellbender. And to give you a little bit of background information about Hellbenders, I wanted to talk a little bit about what they are. And a Hellbender is a giant salamander. And to give you an idea about giant salamanders, there's only about 3 giant salamanders in the world. There's the giant Chinese salamander. There's the giant Japanese salamander. And when I mean giant, these guys are really big. And you're looking, some of them can get up to 5 feet long, maybe close to a little bit over 100 pounds. It's a huge salamander. Now, the one we have in the United States, called the Hellbenders, a little bit smaller, but they're still really big for a salamander, and they can easily reach close to 2 feet in length. And so that's pretty large salamander in our country. Now, they've been called many different names over the years. And so you might have heard different names, possibly if you look them up, everything from mud devil to devil dog, to brown puppy, to snot otter, which has a lot to do with some of their slime on their body, to lasagna lizard and Allegheny alligator. And they all have different names, but they're referring to the same animal because of some of his very unique adaptations. So I'd like to spend a moment or so and kind of go over some of those neat adaptations, give you an idea of a little more about it. So Hellbenders right now, there's 2 major subspecies. There's the Ozark Hellbender, which our zoo spends a lot of time raising, and the Eastern Hellbender. And so you can kind of look on the map where those main populations are. Most Eastern Hellbenders are up and down the Appalachian Mountain Range and the Coldwater Creeks. And then the Ozark Hellbender, which is really unique, is found in the bottom of Missouri and a little bit down into Arkansas. It just so happens that both those subspecies can be found here in our state. Now, where you typically find these guys is the Hellbenders usually live in spring-fed cold water streams, really cold water streams. If you ever get a chance to go out and visit one of these places, it's a neat place to look, nice rocky bottom. And what's neat about them, the cold water helps to have more dissolved oxygen, which helps these guys breathe. So if you happen to run into one, the skin color kind of unique. It ranges a lot from grayish brown, maybe blotches with yellow, yellowish kind of a brown belly, sometimes whitish yellow. And their skin is pretty slippery and slimy. And it helps these guys sometimes get away from predators. But one of the things it does is it doesn't taste very good for some of the different predators that might eat these guys. And they also contain a lot of different folds on their skin. And here's a good example. If you were to zoom in on this picture, take a look, you can see all the different folds and wrinkles. And that helps these guys. They have a lot of blood capillaries near these wrinkles. And so the oxygen can absorb right through their skin. And one of the other things, I took this photo, which was neat. This is a guy pressed up against the glass. You can see the little toe pads here. And these toe pads help move along the bottom of a stream. And so it can even help move up against the water, the stream going against them if they're moving upstream, and they kind of push against it. Similar, but not the same maybe as the toe pads on a frog or something like that. but it gives them a little bit of grip to kind of push along the bottom of the stream. And if you look at some of their body shape, which is kind of neat, these guys definitely have heads and stuff that are kind of flatter and able them to go underneath rocks and wedge themselves in. And they have that really unique flat tail that helps them move and propel themselves through the water. Now, size-wise, again, ours are a little bit smaller than those giant ones, but they're still pretty big. To give you an idea, maybe a comparison, they're close to about 2 rulers in length. And so they range for about 11 to 22 inches in length. It might give you an idea of size-wise. And some of their basic behaviors and why a lot of people don't always see them, they're typically nocturnal. So they're typically out at nighttime. And so these guys are more active in that time. And during the daytime, if it's overcast, they do come out and move along the bottom. And what they're looking for food wise is typically everything from crayfish, snails, little insect larvae, maybe small fish. The predominant part of their diet is crayfish. And typically it's been found to be around 90% of their diet, as that's what they're typically eating in the wild. Now, some of their unique breeding behaviors, these guys typically are more active, which you wouldn't think because they're cold-blooded, and the water temperature stays about the same even when it gets really cold outside above the water. These guys typically are breeding in the range between September and November. So somewhere right in the middle of October, maybe around Halloweenish time, these guys are pretty active. And what's unique about these that makes them a little bit different is typically what males are doing around this time is they're going to be looking for typically a rock structure, a big flat rock where there may be an opening underneath, or it could be something in the bedrock that has an opening underneath. And they're typically looking for a place that maybe has like a one-way opening so they can turn around and stick their head out and protect the opening. And typically females will come along and they're looking for males that are in these dens, and sometimes it might be called den masters. And the females will go in and lay their eggs, and the males will fertilize those eggs, and the males will then stay in there. The female leaves the chamber, and he will stay in those dens and protect the eggs. And sometimes it's been recorded they'll stay in those areas, sometimes even all the way up to 40 days or more, protecting those eggs until they've hatched, and you're going to let them hatch inside and grow and eventually move out. And so the males do guard the eggs. It makes them a little bit different than some of our other salamander species in Missouri. Give you kind of an idea of what it looks like. You have typically this yellowish white colored egg when they're laid. They typically lay it in strings. And after they hatch, they're going to finish metamorphosizing a little bit inside of those egg casings. And once they hatch, they have this nice yolk that they're going to use to absorb and get them energy until they get big enough to start getting food. And if you look down here, about 2 years of age, they still have those gills. So like a lot of amphibians, they're using those to breathe. But as they get older and they get wrinklier skin and the capillaries develop under the skin, they start breathing a little bit more through the folds in their skin. And then about 5 to 8 years of age is when they're typically full grown and sexually mature and then can reproduce on their own. Now I'm going to hand this presentation a little over to my friend Mark, and he's going to talk a little bit about what we are doing here at the zoo and how we are going to protect these guys in the wild.
Hi, everybody. I hope everyone's having a good day. It's always a good day when I get to talk about Hellbenders. So what's going on in the wild? As far as we know, Hellbender populations are not in the best shape throughout the United States. There are some eastern states where the animals can be found more regularly, but we do believe that over almost all the range in the United States that Hellbenders are in trouble in one way or the other. I know that sounds a little discouraging, but as I go on a little bit further, I'll tell you some of the things that there might be a bright spot in the future, at least for Missouri and in some of the eastern United States also. You will notice, again, like Mike had said earlier, there are 2 subspecies in Missouri, the eastern and the Ozark, and that is unique. We are the only state in the United States that do have both subspecies. What's happening in the wild? Well, it's a long list of things going on, and unfortunately, it's hard to put one single thing at fault for Hellbender decline. The one thing that I think that is probably the most important, and we have paid some attention to and probably obviously you need to pay a lot more attention to is siltation of the rivers. If you look at that bottom right-hand picture, you'll see where the mud and the top picture on the right-hand side, also that stream bank erosion. So unfortunately, what happens is when land use is disturbed the way it is in that top right picture, a good rainstorm or a flooding event will come along, and all of that siltation, all of that sand, mud washes into the river system. And what that does is it chokes out all the rocks and all the areas where we assume all the larva hellbender should be living. And what we are seeing in the wild, especially like since 1970s and 80s, is a decline in the young animals. We really don't find very many young hellbenders. And we attribute that to some of that embankment being washed into rivers and choking out those cobble and the stone where we believe the larvae live. Another point is the far left-hand side of the screen. You'll see all the canoers, the kayakers, everything on the river. There is a lot of tourism, a lot of people from the St. Louis region and from other parts of the country that come into Missouri in our rivers and spend a lot of time in canoes, playing in a river, swimming, what have you. And we believe that some of that disturbance can also be a contributing factor. However, it's probably not as important as the stream bank erosion, like I mentioned earlier. The one thing you can remember is that when you're in the field and things like that, that you don't disturb rocks, you don't stack rocks, and that you just have good etiquette when you're in a river system. Think about all the animals in life that lives beneath you as you're canoeing or floating. And then the middle screen is more about disease and things like that. There is a disease in the United States called amphibian chytrid fungus. It is spread all over the world, and it's a disease that affects amphibians, the respiration in their skin. We do have it in our Missouri river systems, and we have found it in hellbenders. And unfortunately, it's hard to really tell exactly what effect it's had on hellbender populations. But we do find some animals that have open sores on their feet, maybe missing digit or something like that. And we expect that that's probably a result of chytrid fungus, probably not the fungus itself. But when an animal is infected with this fungus, it acts like an immune depressant. So it allows other bacteria and other things to take advantage of the animal. So hopefully, we'll learn more about chytrid fungus and hellbenders as time goes on. But right now, I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on at the zoo and how we deal with it here. So at the zoo, we have breeding streams that we've set up. We have 2 outdoor streams and 1 indoor stream. And each one of these streams the habitat is a different system for each river. So for example, one will be the North Fork River, one will be the 11 Point River. This is where our adult breeding animals live. We have been extremely successful over the last several years, and to date have put back over 7,000 hellbenders into the wild. And that's an amazing thing to think about. 2017, we did a viability assessment, which is basically people from all over the United States that work with hellbenders got together, and we put all the facts on paper, everything that we knew about hellbenders. And what came out of it is we had decided that in like the state of Missouri, we assumed at that point that there were only probably 500 to 700 hellbenders in the state of Missouri. So when you think about the numbers of animals that have now been released back into the river systems, I said over 7,000 have been released. You can think about those numbers a little bit and extrapolate it. That's the best way we know right now to make any leadway to saving the species. I'm going to play a video for you right now that shows a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes and some fun egg pictures. So this is what hellbenders look like when they're in the egg. We call them golden nuggets. It's kind of funny. But you'll notice they're flipping back and forth, and what they're doing is exercising. So we call it fitness within the egg. They're breaking down the inside of that egg with a ridge on their nose. It's kind of hard to see in these photos, but young hellbenders in the egg have a ridge on their nose, and by constantly flipping and exercising, they break down the inside of that egg and allows them to hatch easier. These are young hellbenders. You can see the external gills. That's how they basically breathe underwater right now, sort of like a mud puppy. And it's one of the reasons why people get mud puppies and hellbenders confused. A young hellbender looks very much like a mud puppy. So here we have one of the keepers that's trying to help hatch some of the eggs. So sometimes, because they're artificially incubated, we do have a few eggs from time to time that we have to help hatch from the egg. But you can see once they hatch, they jump away and they are ready to go. They'll spend about a month or so at that stage with that big yellow belly and not really doing much of anything except absorbing that yolk. That yellow part is the yolk. And they'll absorb that over time. One thing that Amanda is doing right here, you'll notice that she's taking her hand and stirring the eggs. So one thing that we realized early on is that because we are not a male hellbender, we're not in the water helping these eggs, helping the young the fitness of the egg, or helping aerate the eggs during that incubation period, that we have to go in and actually rock the eggs ourselves. So that helps with, we believe, helps with hatching. And again, like I said, helps the fitness of the larva within the egg. And there Amanda is putting some of those larvae into the system where we keep the young to begin with. You'll see the aquariums had lots of rocks, but we would lose the young hellbenders in rocks if we weren't very careful and manage them a different way as young larvae. And as far as what we can do in good stream etiquette. So good stream etiquette is just like I mentioned. We just need to be careful when we're in the rivers. We need to avoid stacking rocks, disturbing the bottom of the rivers, disturbing the habitat. We need to make sure that if we own land on a river, that we're being very cognizant of the trees and the clearing of land that we're doing. And if you have the ability to buy land on the river, that would be incredible. Buy land, make sure that it stays pristine. You'll see to the left on this top picture, you can see that nice tree line on the edge of that river. That's exactly what the river should look like. And that helps keep that river healthy. And how we can help. So the one thing about helping is we can support any local conservation effort with hellbenders. The Missouri Department of Conservation, or if you live in another state in the United States that is a hellbender state, then you can obviously help with your local wildlife and things like that with the agencies or the Department of Conservation within those states. We can also, again, help by coming to the zoo. We love to have visitors at the zoo. We have hellbenders on habitat and Ozarks and Easterns. So if you come to the zoo, look for those animals on habitat. They can be tricky to find, but just look closely. And I think that's it. Thank you all for coming and seeing our presentation. And I hope we all have a happy Hellbender Day.
Thank you so much, Mark. And I'm going to hand this presentation right back over.
All right, Michael and Mark, thank you guys so much. That was a great presentation, and I'm sure there are many, many people that didn't even know what a hellbender was, let alone what it looked like, that it was endangered, and all of that great information. So I want to thank you guys again for participating in our Mission Conservation live stream today. I actually have a replica of a hellbender here with me today, and so I wanted to give you guys a nice up close look at what these guys look like. This is a pretty good size hellbender. Of course, this is a replica, but it is to scale of what their maximum size could be. The Ozark hellbenders can be a little bit smaller, but this is not the most charismatic of animals. And so we had another biologist on from a Canadian organization a few months back, and they spoke about how when we talk about endangered species and providing support and funding and conservation efforts, some animals are more charismatic than other animals. And the most charismatic animals are the ones that provoke a warm and fuzzy feeling or that look cute and cuddly like a panda. And so the hellbender is an uncharismatic species by that definition. Even though they're not cute and cuddly, they still need our help and our conservation efforts, and organizations like the St. Louis Zoo are doing tremendous work in restoring those natural populations. Well, guys, thank you again for joining us today. Be sure to join us again next week, next Tuesday, as we go all the way out to Puerto Rico and talk endangered parrots at the El Yunque National Forest in Puerto Rico. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you next time.